The guy from 3B knew my schedule better than I did. I didn't clock it at first, you know? I just kept noticing him. When I dragged my laundry basket down the hall, he'd open his door like he'd been standing there waiting. When I came back from work, key halfway to the lock. I'd hear his peephole click and his deadbolt shift. The walls were thin, but not that thin. It felt like he was listening for me specifically. First time, he knocked at 10 p.m. with a toolbox and a fake smile. Management sent me to check your windows. No work order on the app, so I told him to fuck off through the door. He stood there breathing for a full minute before his steps finally went away. That night, I didn't turn the TV back on. I just sat on the couch and listened to my own heart pound in my ears. I replayed his voice in my head. Too cheerful, then too flat when I said no. I checked the app 3 times, emailed the leasing office, even screenshotted the no open maintenance request like I needed proof for myself. I double-locked the door, then dragged my crappy little IKEA dresser in front of it, like that would do anything. I kept telling myself I was overreacting. It's a city, buildings are full of weirdos, whatever. But when I want to throw out trash around midnight, I saw it. His door cracked open just an inch. No te venois, no footsteps. Just that crack facing my unit like a staring eye. I pretended not to notice and walked faster. The door creaked a little wider as it passed. Next week, same knock earlier. This time he called me by my first name. Said my bathroom fan leaked into his unit, and he needed pictures. I watched his shadow block the peephole while he tried the handle. Hearing your own name in a stranger's mouth like that does something to you. I never told him my name. I never told anyone which unit I was in except the leasing office and my friends. I froze for a second, then asked, "Who gave you my name?" He ignored it and started rattling off made-up building terms like he'd practiced a script. "Yeah, there's condensation coming straight down. I just gotta grab a couple pics for the landlord. Won't even be a minute." The handle clicked again, harder. I watched the metal jiggle in the frame while his shadow leaned closer, like he was pressing his ear to the door. "Back away from my door," I said, louder than I meant to. "I already reported this shit." He went silent. No apology, no footsteps, just silence. Shadow still there. I heard the tiniest scrape, like metal against metal, and something in me snapped. "I'm calling the cops," I said, and that finally did it. Footsteps fast back toward 3B. Door shit. I did call the police, but on the non-emergency line, and they gave me that tired call center voice. "Did he threaten you?" "No." "Did he brandish a weapon?" "No." "Did he gain entry?" "No." So basically, nothing they could do. If he comes back and attempts to break in, call 911. Cool. So the rule was I had to wait until he actually started to get in. I called the leasing office the next morning. The girl at the desk sounded bored until I mentioned his unit number, and then she got weirdly careful with her words. "We'll make a note of it, ma'am. Please don't confront other residents directly. We'll remind everyone of proper maintenance procedures." That was it. "No, we'll talk to him. No, you're safe here." Just policy language. After that, it felt like he turned the volume up. I heard his door whenever I came home. The people on my side would go dark while I put my keys down. Once around 3 a.m., I woke up to this soft, patient sound, my doorknob turning slow like someone testing exactly how far they could move it before it clicked. I lay there holding my breath, listening to that metal tick-tick-tick and the faint rasp of his fingers on the wood. No knocking, no talking, just a test. The next morning, there was a little piece of clear tape stuck over the latch plate, half peeled off. I hadn't put it there. I stared it away too long before ripping it off with shaking hands. I posted on our city subreddit asking if anyone else had issues with a creep in my building. Someone DM'd me. "Is it the skinny guy with the buzz cut in 3B? Don't answer the door." That DM hit harder than anything the cops said. I typed back, fingers sweating on my phone. "Yeah, skinny buzz cut toolbox?" The reply came fast. "He tried that maintenance line on me last year. I moved. Be careful." I asked why they didn't report him. They said they had. "Management doesn't want trouble," they wrote. "They just turn units over." I scrolled their post history. Normal shit. Gaming, food, traffic complaints. not some troll. I started clocking every noise in that building. When I showered, I pictured him in a unit below mine, head tilted back, listening through the pipes. When I turned on the bathroom fan, I couldn't stop thinking about what he said about leaks, about him watching the ceiling like he could see my outline through it. I started showering at weird times, 3 p.m., 5 a.m., to throw him off like I was playing some fucked up game he'd started without telling me the rules. Then the fire alarm went off one night around 11:30. That awful wail shredded the air, and I grabbed my keys, my hoodie, my phone. I joined this sleepy, pissed-off line of people shuffling down the stairwell. And there he was on the landing below me, 3B, leaning against the rail, not looking at the exit, just looking up at me. He smiled like we were in on some joke. I ended up behind a couple arguing about their cat, so there were bodies between us, but I felt his eyes on me the whole way down. Outside, while we stood on the sidewalk in the cold, he moved closer, not enough to touch, just in my orbit. "Hey," he said low like we were old friends. "I keep telling management about that fan issue. You're gonna flood my place one of these nights." I didn't answer. I just stepped away. He followed the step, still smiling like we were dancing. I finally snapped, "Stop talking to me. Stop knocking on my door. I'm serious." He didn't get angry. That was the worst part. His smile just went blank, like he turned his face off. He looked at me like I was a light he could switch whenever he wanted. Then he said, "See you around," like a promise. I barely slept after that. Every creak sounded like his foot. Every hallway echo turned into a shadow in my head. I started dragging a chair under the handle every night. I ordered one of those cheap little door alarms off Amazon and stuck it on with shaking hands. I pushed my dresser against the balcony door. It felt stupid and paranoid and completely necessary. A few nights later, he knocked again. Not loud, not frantic, just 3 slow knocks around midnight. Like he knew exactly how much noise he could make before someone else would hear. The alarm on the handle stayed quiet, but I could see the shadow under my door, long and still. I texted my friend, "He's back." She wrote, "FaceTime me." I didn't. I stood there in the dark with my phone in my hand, staring at the door like if I moved, he'd know. After maybe 10 minutes, he left. I only knew because the shadow disappeared and the floor stopped creaking under his weight. I waited another 20 before I even breathed all the way out. That was when I decided to move. I did the math, looked at my account, saw the early termination fee and the movers and the new deposit and thought, fine, I'll eat ramen for 6 months, I don't care. My body felt done. That kind of fear settles into your muscles like lactic acid. The leasing office gave me this tight little smile when I said I wanted out. The girl glanced at my unit number, typed something, then looked over my shoulder toward the glass doors like she expected someone to walk in. "We can arrange a move-out date for next week," she said, way too quickly. "Key drop is in the lobby." That shook me more than if she'd argued. It felt like she'd been waiting for me to say it. The last night in that apartment, I slept on a bare mattress with my packed boxes stacked like a barricade. I kept the lamp on. At some point, I actually drifted off. Around 4 a.m., I woke up to this pressure. Not a noise, a feeling. Like the room tilted. Then I heard it, the softest thud against the door, like a shoulder leaning in, testing. No knock, no voice, just that weight. The little plastic alarm on the knob trembled. Gave this faint rattle, but didn't go off. I stared at the outline of the door in the lamplight and pictured him on the other side, forehead pressed to the wood, hand on the knob, smiling that turned-off smile. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just watched the door and counted my heartbeats until the pressure disappeared and the hallway went dead again. The day I moved out, I saw a notice taped to the lobby wall. Police contact info, bold letters. Attempted kidnapping, witnesses needed. The date matched his first visit. Underneath, someone had written in red marker, "Messy and fast. She lived IN 3A." That was my unit number. I learned my old manager wasn't just an asshole when a ceiling tile collapsed on my desk. We were in that Dead strip mall store on its last week of life. Half the shelves already gutted, mannequins naked, everything smelling like dust and old perfume samples. Corporate gave us these closing tasks, packets like we were sending a family member off to hospice, not bulldozing a carcass. My manager, Mark, walked around with a clipboard, pretending any of it still mattered. He'd always been that guy. Bald spot he pretended didn't exist, fake friendly voice for customers. Then he'd turn around and whisper some shit like, she doesn't need a size medium, she needs a treadmill. Stuff that makes you laugh the first month because you want the job, then later just makes you feel gross. That night it was just me, him, and one cashier up front. I was in the back corner on a ladder, pulling down dusty stock nobody would ever buy. I yanked at this metal shelf. It jerked backward, hit the drop ceiling, and this tile just slid, gave up, and busted down right onto my desk. Gray crumbs everywhere, and this black trash bag dropped with it. At first I thought I'd broken a pipe or something and screwed the insurance claim. I swore, climbed down, and kicked the bag. It didn't feel like trash. It felt solid, heavy. I remember yelling for Mark, and he yelled back, if it's not on the task list, leave it. That pissed me off more than it should have. We weren't people to him, just line items. So I ripped the bag open out of spite. Phones. Just a pile of phones. Not new ones. Not stock. Old ones, all dead, all different. iPhones, cheap Androids, a pink one with a cracked glitter case. Each had a strip of masking tape on the back, written in his shitty, all-caps block letters. First names, ages sometimes, and notes. Megan, bar by station, walks home. Allie, bus route 12, lives alone. Kate, locks back door only. I remember my brain just stalling. Like when you open too many tabs and everything freezes. I sat on the broken ceiling tile, picking up phone after phone, turning them over, reading those notes, trying to make it make sense. Maybe it was some weird lost and found system. Maybe he was keeping them for training or some stupid policy shit. That's what I told myself for the first 30 seconds. Then I saw one that just said, in '01 looking for her. I actually laughed when I read that. This dry, choked little laugh. Like it had to be a joke. Mark loved dark humor, right? He'd say creepy stuff all the time. Maybe these were burner phones from shoplifters or something. My brain grabbed any excuse it could. One phone still had charge when I plugged it into the outlet by my desk. The screen lit up slow, like it really didn't want to. Wallpaper was a girl's selfie, blonde, hair in a messy bun, sunburn on her nose. I knew her face before I knew why. It took my brain about 2 seconds to overlay it with a black and white photo I'd been driving past for months on that missing billboard by the freeway. Same eyes, same stupid scrunch smile. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd puke on the keyboard. Notifications started stacking as it connected to the store Wi-Fi. Not texts, not Instagram, email drafts, all from the same address, all unsent. The little subject lines were just timestamps and locations. Friday, 23:11 and 47 seconds p.m. Parking lot behind bar. Tuesday, 2:06 and 15 seconds a.m. Bus stop by gym. Stuff like that. I opened one. It was directions, step by step, how she moved. Leaves bar with friends. They split at the light. She walks north on 5th, cuts through alley by bakery. Checks her phone 5 times. That level of detail, like someone shadowed her, then came home and wrote a report. I tried to calm myself down. I told myself maybe she was paranoid. Maybe she wrote about someone stalking her. The voice in my head sounded weak, though, like even I didn't buy it. Then I scrolled to the top of the email drafts list and saw other names I'd already read on those tape labels. Same style, same precise notes. Different cities in the subject line. Different bars, bus stops, gyms. The air in that back corner felt wrong. Too still, too warm. I kept expecting Mark to appear behind me, tapping his foot, asking why I was off task. I unplugged the phone like it burned me and shoved it, and then all the others back into the bag. My hand shook so hard the chargers rattled against the desk. I took the bag and walked straight to the front because I knew one thing. That shit was not staying in the store with him. Mark saw the bag, saw my face, and his whole expression twitched for half a second before he smiled again. "You break the ceiling, you clean it up," he said, but his voice sounded tight. He stepped toward me like he wanted to grab the bag. I held it away from him. "This was above my desk," I said. "In the ceiling." He frowned, opened his mouth, closed it again. That twitch again, near his eye. "Probably old lost devices," he said finally. "We're supposed to destroy them. They've got names on them," I said, "and notes. So black out the names and toss them." His voice snapped louder. It echoed off the empty shelves. The cashier glanced over, then looked back down like she'd learned better. Something in me snapped back. Months of him shorting our hours, screaming over little mistakes, grabbing my wrist once when I tried to clock out on time. I looked him dead in the face and said, "No, I'm taking them." For a second, I thought he'd swing at me. His hand tightened around the clipboard so hard it bent. Then he did this little fake laugh, that snorting one, and said, "Fine, take the trash home if you want. It's on you if corporate asks." The way he said "on you" made my skin crawl. I didn't clock out. I walked straight to my car with that bag, heard the automatic doors wheeze behind me, half expecting him to run out and demand it back. He didn't. At the traffic light, I almost turned toward my apartment. Part of me wanted to drop the bag in the dumpster and pretend I never saw it. I knew if I went to the cops, my life would get messy. Questions, statements, maybe lawyers. I'd probably lose the reference from that job. Not that it was worth much. But that girl's billboard face wouldn't leave my head. I turned toward the police station. They put me in this little beige room that smelled like coffee and old sweat. I dumped the phones out on the table. When the detective saw the tape labels, his whole body changed. That tired slump disappeared. He pulled on gloves, started arranging them in rows. He plugged in the one that still worked, saw the wallpaper, swore under his breath. When I told him about Mark, how he'd always fixed our phones for free, how he'd offer to transfer data for customers if the system was slow, how he did side repairs for cash, something flickered in his eyes like recognition. He kept asking me the same questions, different ways. Did I ever see him leave with devices? Did he ever talk about customers outside of work? Had I noticed any women coming in alone, late? Finally, I said, "You guys know who he is already, don't you?" The detective paused, pen hovering over the paper, then said, "We've had our eye on him." Like it hurt to admit they hadn't done more. Nothing stuck. Walking out of that station, I expected some kind of relief. Hero music. Epiphany. Instead, I just felt tired and dirty. Like I'd rolled in something I couldn't wash off. The store closed 2 days later. I never saw Mark again. Corporate sent a mass text about operational restructuring and supporting our team members during this transition, which was bullshit because my last paycheck still came up short. His number stopped working. His Facebook went dark. It was like he stepped sideways out of the world. I kept checking the news, waiting to see local manager arrested or serial stalker caught. Nothing. Maybe they were building a case. Maybe he was gone. Maybe he was laughing somewhere with a new name and a new ceiling. A couple months later, I was doom scrolling Reddit at 2 a.m., that sick habit you get when your brain refuses to shut up. True crime sub, title about unidentified predator using stolen phone data from repair shops in 3 states. I clicked because of course I did. It was a podcast episode, some investigative show. They talked about women who vanished after getting their phones fixed or upgraded. Same pattern, bars, bus stops, grocery stores. The host said the guy had access to their data, their photos, their routines. He tracked them quietly for weeks before anything happened. They played clips from an interview with a person of interest whose voice they distorted. I told myself it wasn't him. It could be anyone. There are a lot of shitty phone techs in the world. I almost closed the app. Then the guy on the recording laughed at something the host said. Just a quick thing, barely a second long. A stupid little snore at the end, like he swallowed his own laugh. My whole body locked up. I knew that sound. My brain dragged me right back to the break room, where Mark leaned over me while I begged him for overtime pay, smirking, saying, if he were worth it, corporate would approve it, before making that same ugly snort. voice distorted, but I swear to God, when he laughed, I heard the same stupid little snort my boss made when he denied our overtime. My stalker started as a mod on a niche subreddit about vintage keyboards. He was helpful at first, sent me firmware links, complimented my builds. Then the DMs slipped from tech talk to questions about my work schedule, the view from my window, whether I live ground floor or higher, just curious. I ignored him and he banned me for rule violations. At the time, it just felt like internet drama. You know, that petty, nerd ego bullshit that hangs over every tech forum? I figured he got mad because I didn't bow down to his expert advice or whatever. I even laughed when I saw the ban message at first. I screenshotted it, sent it to a friend, typed out some sarcastic rant, closed the app, and went back to my life. Because that's what you do with people like that. You mute, block, move on. You don't assume they're going to crawl out of the screen. He hadn't seemed dangerous at the beginning. He had that typical neckbeard mod vibe. Long paragraphs, strict rules, but also this performative helpfulness. He'd ping me whenever I posted, "Nice soldering, clean work, that keycap set suits your board," stuff like that. It felt good, honestly. I was new to the hobby, I worked a shitty office job, and this was one of the few places where anyone cared about anything I made. So when his messages started to shift, I noticed, but I didn't take it seriously enough. He started asking what time I usually built, said my lighting looked like late afternoon, asked what brand my blinds were because the pattern of the shadows looks interesting, asked if my ISP throttled at night because your upload times drop at certain hours. I remember reading that and pausing. I scrolled back through my posts, looking at timestamps like an idiot, like I'd accidentally left breadcrumbs and he just followed them. Still, I told myself he was just a bored dude with too much time. I answered short. I dodged questions. When he asked if I lived alone, I just left it on read. The ban didn't even come right after that. First, he warned me. Some bullshit about low-effort content because I posted a photo with my desk in the background. Then another message. "You keep ignoring my mod notes." Then the DM where he suddenly dropped the friendly tone and wrote, "You really shouldn't be rude to people who know so much about you." I stared at that line for a long time. I typed, "Dude, WTF?" and deleted it. I tried to report him to the other mods, but he was the mod team. The next day, I woke up banned. Rule violations. No explanation. Fine. Cool. Whatever. I made coffee, went to work, told myself the internet wasn't real life. A week later, my Instagram, which used a different name, got a follow from an account with my Reddit avatar as the profile pic. That punched straight through every little rationalization I'd built. I stared at the notification, my thumb hovering over the screen. Same cartoon skull, same stupid neon color scheme he'd complimented once. The account had no posts, no bio, just that picture. I blocked it immediately, but blocking doesn't erase the fact that it found you. That's when I started to replay everything. What did I slip? Did any of my keyboard photos show my reflection? My street? Did I ever post near my work? I went through my IG like a forensic freak, zooming into backgrounds, checking EXIF data. I deleted a bunch of posts. It felt like I was clawing pieces of myself off the internet. Then my work phone rang. I never give that number out. It's buried on the company site behind 3 clicks, and nobody ever calls except clients and spam. Caller ID said unknown. I picked up because that's my job. Nothing. Just a line open and this low sound. Breathing, but not like in movies, not loud and theatrical. Shallow, steady. Then I heard it. Click, 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 soft, sharp. I know that sound. I've spent stupid amounts of money on boards and switches. It was a mechanical switch, pressed slowly, reset, pressed again. I said, "Hello? Who is this?" And the breathing stopped. The clicking stopped, but the line stayed open for another 15 seconds like whoever was leaned close and just listened to me breathe instead. I hung up. My hand shook so bad I misdialed when I tried to call back from the office landline. The receptionist saw my face and asked if I was okay. I mumbled something about a prank call. How do you say, "Some asshole from my keyboard subreddit is probably listening to me from God knows where. It sounds insane. After that, I started to see him everywhere, even when I knew it wasn't him. A guy in a hoodie outside the building, a car idling too long near my bus stop, a shadow on the landing when I took the stairs. Rationally, I knew it was just random people existing, but my body didn't care. My body jumped at every noise. Then the packages started. The first one showed up on a Tuesday. Brown padded envelope, no return address, my name and apartment number written in neat block letters. No company logo, no tracking. I buy too much crap online, so I opened it without thinking. A single glove fell out. Black, stretchy, the cheap kind mechanics use. I turned it over in my hand. There was a faint gray smudge along the fingertips like graphite. No note, nothing inside. I checked the trash for packing slip, checked the envelope twice. Nothing. I told myself it was some shipping error. Wrong address. I tossed the glove in a drawer and went on with my day. That night, lying in bed, I remembered he'd once told me in a DM that he always built with gloves because the oil from your fingers ages the caps. I hadn't cared at the time. Now, that stupid detail crawled back and sat on my chest. The second package came 3 days later. No return address. Same handwriting. Inside, a cheap, off-brand webcam still in its plastic shell. Not even a good one, just some low-res generic thing. My stomach dropped in this weird, cold way. I sat on the table like it might bite. I don't stream. I don't video call. There was no reason for anyone to send me that. I wanted the leasing office with it. The woman behind the desk looked at the envelope, shrugged, told me to call the non-emergency police line if I was worried. I did. The cop on the phone sounded bored before I finished the first sentence. Any threats? Has he harmed you? Maybe it's a prank from a friend. They filed a report just in case, which I'm pretty sure means they tossed my name into a spreadsheet and moved on. I stopped sleeping properly. I stacked furniture in front of my door at night. I taped over every camera on every device I owned, even my TV. That webcam sat on my counter like a dare until I finally shoved it in the back of a cabinet. The third package didn't pretend to be normal. Same envelope, same handwriting, but this time it felt heavier. I opened it slowly, already nauseous. Inside was a printed photo. Cheap printer paper, ink slightly streaky, but clear enough. It was my building entrance. The shot came from across the street, slightly angled like someone sat in a car or at a bus stop and zoomed in. My door, my buzzer, the cracked tile I stepped over every morning because I once slipped on in the rain. On the envelope, under my full name and apartment number, he'd written the tagline from one of my old posts. Something stupid I'd typed months before about chasing the perfect click. Seeing that phrase in his handwriting made my skin crawl. It meant he wasn't just watching my physical place. He was combing through my digital one, picking up phrases, carrying them over like trophies. I called my parents that night. My mom told me to stay with a friend. My dad told me to stop giving these freaks power and get off those sites. My friend suggested pepper spray, said they'd walk me home, sent me articles about digital safety. No one actually said the part that sat in the back of my throat. This person knows where you sleep. I tried to move within the same city first. That turned into a mess of deposits and wait lists. I argued with the property manager when he said my reason for breaking the lease wasn't valid enough to waive fees. I printed the photo and slapped it on his desk. He barely glanced at it. "We can't verify that's related," he said. I almost screamed at him. In the end, I paid the penalty, packed my shit in boxes, and left that apartment empty except for a forwarding address form I filled out very, very carefully. New city, new job, new everything. I picked the place because it was far enough away that it felt like another planet, but not far enough that I had to explain to employers why I was running from someone. I told everyone it was a fresh start. I told myself that obsessive people get bored when their target disappears. They latch onto someone else. They move on. I changed usernames. I deleted old accounts. I stopped posting builds. I kept my blinds closed even during the day. My laptop felt like a loaded gun on my desk. Every time I typed, I imagined him on the other side, waiting for crumbs. Still, loneliness creeps in. You can only sit in a silent apartment for so long before you crave any kind of connection, even the shitty, surface kind. So I joined a local subreddit to find furniture. Just practical stuff. Cheap couch, used microwave, coffee table. No pictures of myself. No pictures of my building. I used a throwaway account with a random name. I made one post, asked if anyone was selling a desk. I wrote 3 lines, hit submit, and sat back, trying to convince myself that this was normal, that regular people use the internet without thinking about whether it might kill them. Top comment on my first post said, "Nice to see you here instead. 5th floor suits you better. Noiju Surinam." Just a deleted account with the same old avatar staring back at me.